Hey everyone, and welcome to the channel, and welcome to another episode of One Piece a Day. If this is your first time in the series, basically in early 2022, I challenged myself to catch up to One Piece. And I didn't want to just marathon the entire franchise because I didn't feel like that was the right way to experience it, and I didn't want to go slowly through the anime either, because at a sort of arbitrary pace, just watching a few episodes a day or something like that, because I also didn't think that it would grab me in the way that I thought it should. And I did have a history with the series because I watched the original 4Kids dub as it was airing, and that turned me off the franchise for a very long time and didn't want to return to it until very recently. But I always felt like I was missing out, so I decided to find a way to catch up to the franchise in a way that would be meaningful and I could engage with it and grow along with it and not feel rushed. So I challenged myself to read one chapter of One Piece once a day until I catch up to the franchise currently. And then by then I'll be reading it weekly and maybe watching the anime, who knows. So this is the latest update video, and it's been a while since my last video. I think it's been like 2 or 3 months since my last update video. It was definitely a while. Back then I had just finished the Paramount War and was about to start the time skip. And where I am currently is chapter 700. Now the reason why it's been so long is I was busy with some other stuff, but also I thought it'd be cool to let the chapters build up a bit so I had a bit to discuss, because I didn't think that the starting time skip arcs had that much to discuss. And also I thought it'd be nice to do a 700 chapter update video, especially since it sort of leads into the start of 2024, and I thought it'd be good to discuss my thoughts and feelings about One Piece where I'm almost 2 years into the experiment. So it's been almost 2 years since I started reading One Piece, and I've only missed like 1 or 2 days and I caught up on those no problem. And like I've said before, I was jaded on the franchise because of the 4Kids dub, and I did not like that at all. So for many years I sort of held that in me that that's what One Piece was. But thankfully I did decide to give it another go, and it didn't take very long for me to really be into it. I'm glad that it is even more popular than ever, even though it was already a titanic franchise. But it is cool that it has so much global recognition, so many cool things are happening. There's going to be the anime remake done by Studio Wit sometime in 2024, and we'll see how that turns out. But as of right now, I'm up to chapter 700, which falls right on January 1st, so this video will come out after the recording, obviously, but that's sort of where I'm recording this. So Happy New Year, everyone! But where I am currently in the manga, the last time when I talked about it was the Paramount War, and now I have finished Punk Hazard. So between then and now, we've done the initial time skip arc, which was the return to the Sabaody Archipelago, Fishman Island, and Punk Hazard. Now, I don't think there's actually that much to talk about, even though they are big arcs, in particular Fishman Island and Punk Hazard, but I think that they can be discussed together. And it's not like how I'd normally dissect an arc and speak at length about the entire thing and all the powers at play and everything like that. I think it's more just a quick recap of the story and what I felt about it. So first off, the Sabaody Archipelago sort of return after the 2-year time skip. I thought that was a really great arc. It was great to get to see all the Straw Hats again, great to see them with the new designs and where they are at currently, personality-wise, strength-wise, and everything like that. And it's also good to see a lot of the running gags return, or new running gags built off of pre-existing things. So one of the things that I really liked were the fake Straw Hats, like a group sort of gaining notoriety because Luffy and the crew have been silent for 2 years and dispersed for 2 years. And I liked how that sort of worked. I liked how Chopper showed up after 2 years and automatically assumed that those were the actual Straw Hats, and a lot happened over those 2 years. And that added in a bit of fun to the whole arc. Seeing how everyone's grown was good. A proper, well, not really a proper, but some sort of explanation of what Haki was also appreciated. and to see sort of Luffy's application of that skill was also good. So that whole sort of regrouping arc was quite good, and it was a nice little revisit of Sabaody Archipelago to sort of cap it off and continue where we literally left off in the journey, which was them stranded on that archipelago until they could get the coding done on their ship and then enter Fishman Island. So it realistically didn't feel like we left that long, even though a lot of stuff happened in between. But the actual like Fishman Island arc chains off of that in a sort of sense of, oh, we're going to show you how strong the Straw Hats are now, or sort of what personality traits they have after that gap. So, like, Zoro's stronger, Franky's more mechanized, Chopper's got better control over his points, Usopp is way more useful, Nami can basically completely control the weather with her new climate baton. Robin, not so much on change in power or anything like that, it's just that she's sort of a bit more active in battle, I'd say. And then, like, Luffy with Haki, Zoro just being an absolute monster, and Sanji being really, really strong as well. But out of everyone, Sanji has suffered the most in the time skip because he now has an evolved character trait. So Sanji's previous character trait was he loves women. And that'd mainly be played off as jokes or little moments where he can't fight, but it never really impacted the narrative that much. It was more just like a little bit of a side gag for the most part. But in the Fishman Island arc and Sabaody Archipelago arc, Sanji has been away from his crew and attractive women for so long that he overreacts when he sees them now. So he has a bloody nose, basically incapacitates him, and it's just like a whole gag. And he's way more pervy than he used to be. And you could play this off as a gag, really, but it genuinely does halt the narrative in several key moments, especially during Fishman Island. And it felt like an absolute waste and actually tarnished the character, I'd say. He really doesn't feel the same, and it was quite frustrating for the most part. And just honestly ashamed to see him go like that. And it also didn't help that the Fishman Island arc I felt was generally pretty weak. Like, the overall narrative is fine, a lot of the characters are pretty good, generally. And we do cover some interesting story beats, in particular those involving Jinbei. So the main thing is that this is about two villains, Hody and Vanderdecken, trying to seize power and take over the Fishman Island and or marry the princess of the Fishman Kingdom. We have Princess Shirahoshi, who's a gigantic mermaid. And it has a lot of parallels to the Alabasta arc in terms of like power structure and damsel in distress, need to avert a war and things like that. But the characters are way different and it develops way differently. And Shirahoshi is not nearly as strong a character as Vivi. Shirahoshi is very, very, very whiny, but they did establish that very early on, and she isn't too annoying to a degree that I hated her, but it can be a bit bothersome. And generally she was fine. A lot of the backstory of Fishman Island was really good. It was good to see a lot of the previous characters come back, like Hachi and Kami and the little starfish guy. It's good to get a bit more on that. And we got a little bit more on the sort of origins of the vicious racism against fishmen and the hatred that the fishmen hold for humans. So we got a lot of stuff like that. The previous queen of the Fishman Island, that entire flashback was pretty heartbreaking. We got to learn a lot more about Arlong, got to learn a bit more about Hody, and we got to learn a lot about how Jinbei fits into everything. And Jinbei is a pretty damn good character. He's very strong, very cool, and very stoic. And I did really like how he felt sort of like secondhand regret for what happened to Nami, because he, in one way or another, is responsible for why Arlong was in East Blue and why all of this happened. And I thought that was interesting. I thought it could have been a bit of a stronger moment for Nami, But I do think we covered what we needed to cover in it, so it was nice to have that sort of closure and revisit a previous arc and fill in a couple blanks that didn't need to be filled in, but it's nice that they got filled in. But the major villains of the arc, Vanderdecken and Hody Jones, hated Vanderdecken so much. He's so annoying. His fruit power is very interesting, but him as a character was like pretty pathetic. I did not like him at all. And you're not meant to like him as a villain, but like you can still like a villain or get behind a villain. But he was just like irredeemably annoying and bad, and just really did not like him at all. Hody, it seemed like there was something there that they wanted to explain but couldn't. And every chance they got to try to explain why he hates humans so much, it was literally just, oh, he's just like that. And I was hoping that there would be some big reason for it, but no, he just hates humans so much that he has literally caused all of the problems that Fishman Island has had for like the last decade or so. And so that was pretty frustrating. Like, he was a strong villain and could have been cool, interesting design, but his one like character trait is he's just really, really angry at humans for basically no reason at all, just because. And I felt like that was a massively wasted opportunity. And while it leads to some really cool fights and really cool moments for a lot of the characters, it just feels pretty meh at the end of it. Like, we saved the day, move on, we took out the bad guy, just, yeah. And like, it's not like it's a bad arc by any means, it just felt like it went a bit longer than it should have, or some of the developments happened a bit slower than they should have. And overall, not a lot of it mattered, especially because of, like, we didn't really resolve that much about character motivations or change people's minds, because a lot of them were sort of already leaning towards forgiving humans or giving humans a chance, and it was just that we had a roadblock of like a few people that just bared so much hatred that they needed to be taken care of. So that's roughly Fishman Island. It's just a fairly simple filler arc that was important in terms of the grand scheme of things, but also didn't have that much of an impact on anything. If anything, it was really just there to showcase how strong the Straw Hats are now and what they can do, what they're capable of, what has changed and what hasn't changed. And generally the tone of the series feels a little bit changed. It's not as lighthearted as it was before. Granted, there are definitely lighthearted moments and jokes and things like that, but there are quite a few moments where it feels like the tone is just a little bit different. But at the end of the arc, we did get introduced to the power concept of the four emperors in relation to the rest of the world in Big Mom's sort of deal with Fishman Island. And I thought that was really cool. I do like that we're introducing characters that early on and fleshing them out that early on and sort of figuring out how this sort of world structure works, especially the world structure in the New World. So that was interesting. And then straight after that, we go into Punk Hazard. And Punk Hazard, conceptually, very, very cool, of this island that has two extreme weather conditions. It's basically used as a big experimentation field, and it has remnants of Dr. Vegapunk and his research. And then we've got a mad scientist continuing that work in his own twisted fantasy to gain their own reputation because they don't like being in the shadow of Vegapunk. And that's basically the description of all of Punk Hazard. Caesar is a mad scientist trying to one-up Vegapunk because he doesn't really want to share the spotlight and doesn't like playing second fiddle to anyone. So because of that, he's experimenting on all sorts of things, trying all sorts of things, and the worst of all, experimenting on children. And the way they depict this in One Piece is pretty brutal and really interesting for a shonen series. And by the end of the arc, I wanted Caesar gone because they really make you hate him. And I felt like Caesar was a better villain because he had a bit of motivation to him that stuck way more than Hody. Like it said, he doesn't want to play second fiddle, and I felt like that's enough for him. He's a scientist, so he's always got a weird, twisted mindset of progression, and because of everything else with him, that has been twisted to be like, I've got to keep pushing forward and keep doing these vile things to get what I want. And I thought that worked for Caesar. And in this arc, a lot of things happen, and it has a very chaotic speed to it. Things happen at a snail's pace or super rapidly. It's just wild. And so we've got clashes with the Navy, we've got Smoker and Tashigi showing up post-time skip. We've got a bit more of a proper introduction to Dressrosa and Doflamingo's whole deal, because he's got a whole network going on, and it is good that we saw Doflamingo so early on in the franchise that we know he's way more of a threat or way more interesting than we sort of initially let on. And then we get introduced to new power struggles, new states of the world, the sort of black market behind everything in One Piece, like people buying into like these new drugs or these new experiments, or witnessing them around the world just to see like how many hands are in this pot. So that was interesting. It was also cool to see the sort of new Seven Warlords in like a sense of Law is now one of them, and we're like, oh well, Law used to be a pretty free pirate similar to Luffy, so it's interesting that he became a warlord, and then you learn a bit more about that, and he's on this island too. You get to see just how powerful Law's fruit is, and really in the wrong hands it could be absolutely devastating. His fight against Smoker was super brutal, like I was not expecting it to go the way it did, and it just really showcased sort of the power that we're dealing with, as well as the power system of One Piece being more about matchups than it is about raw strength. So the arc progresses pretty well. There's a lot of chaos, like I said, and there's some really strong character moments. Chopper has a few moments, Nami has moments, Sanji has moments, Zoro has moments, and a lot of them are good. Some of them are short-lived, but generally I think it's all good. I do like some of the gags, like when they were doing the body switching stuff that Law did. Again, his power is wild. When Chopper was in... when Frankie was in Chopper's body, and Nico Robin just hating every second of that. Because she likes Chopper, because Chopper's cute and innocent, and Frankie's just Frankie. But things like that were really cool. I liked how the arc developed. I did wish that it ended a little bit earlier, but I do think the finale was strong, and I didn't expect it to get as dark as it did at times, but generally I thought it was a much better arc than the Fishman Island. And finishing Punk Hazard, I believe we'll be going into Dressrosa next, and I know that that's a very long arc, so I'll probably do another one of these videos after that. But generally that's where I'm at in One Piece and how I feel about the franchise right now. Again, very, very much on board with the entire franchise to see where it goes next. I'm keen to see what happens with that remake coming this year at some point. I'm pretty sure it'll be this year. And seeing if we're going to remake everything or just remake the really old stuff like the East Blue stuff, or up to Alabasta, because Alabasta still feels a bit old at this point. And the anime's been going for 25 years, so it does make sense that you'd need to do a remake or something. I thought they'd do something like Dragon Ball Kai, where they just sort of cut a lot of content to clean up the whole narrative, make it more like the manga, redub it, and reanimate a few things if they need to. But it looks like we're getting a full-blown remake, and we'll see what that becomes later. Now, I haven't really talked that much about this stuff on the channel, but I'd say any figurine collector has Grail figures. So figures that they really want in their collection, things that have always eluded them. And I'm no different. I would say that my Grail list has changed quite a bit in the last year and a half, ever since I started One Piece really, because I sort of went out initially going like, oh, I want to get all of the Straw Hats and like good figures of all the Straw Hats, all in the same scale with each other. I immediately went for the Portrait of Pirates line, as in particular the Sailing Again set, because the Portrait of Pirates line tends not to finish like figurine sets, and the Sailing Again one is one of the few ones that they've actually finished. They've got all the Straw Hats in it, and all consistent with each other. And I got most of them, and was like, yeah, this isn't too bad. And then I saw the price of Frankie and Jinbei, and a shiver ran down my spine. Aftermarket Portrait of Pirates is insane. And it's a shame that there aren't any other like really good Portrait of Pirates Jinbei or Frankie around. Like there's some good ones, but the Sailing Again ones are like perfect. And in particular Frankie, because he's got like every accessory you could ever want to recreate any like sort of new world design Frankie, and it's annoying that it is like that. And I wish I got into One Piece earlier at a time when I could get them easily. Mega House are running a poll, as of recording, Mega House are running a poll to vote for re-release for some Portrait of Pirates, and there are some really cool ones in there. I really want the Jinbei to win, or the Crocodile to win, because there's a really nice looking crocodile. But I also wouldn't mind another Zoro, but the Frankie's on there too. But anyway, for my grails for One Piece, it's like the Frankie and the Jinbei, the Sailing Again Maximum ones. They look really, really cool, really want them in the collection. There's a lot of other anime figures and things like that that I'd want at some point, but those ones are like definitely grail status. And sometimes it's annoying. I also wouldn't mind Gear 4 Luffy Portrait of Pirates or the Snake Man one, because that looks cool too. And I know I'm not up to that part, but like, I've been spoiled on it obviously. But I don't think it'll hurt my appreciation or enjoyment of the franchise at all. But I don't think there's that much to talk about really today. It's more so just update of where I am and what's going on and what I'm really hunting for. I am keen to see what happens next with the One Piece SH Figuarts line, because the Luffy was okay, Zoro was pretty damn bad, and the Sanji was good. The Yamato is out at this point, but I don't have them yet, but I've heard they're pretty good as well. There's going to be the massive Kaido, there's going to be Gear 5 Luffy, Captain Kidd, Law, the Netflix ones, which I'm not interested in at all. But then there's going to be pre-time skip Luffy and Nami, and I can only assume we'll get more of the pre-time skip characters as well. And it's interesting that we're getting pre-time skip Nami before a post-time skip Nami was announced. Hopefully we'll get a pretty good figure out of that, and hopefully the pre-time skip Luffy will be better than the first release Luffy from Wano, because I think that we can work on his articulation a bit, you can work on his accessories a bit, and just make a better figure out of it. I can imagine if you get that right as a baseline, then we'll have tons of pre-time skip Luffy, because this is him with his red like little jacket vest buttoned up, his very first appearance in the Romance Dawn like One Piece set. And then you can do, here's him with the blue vest, here's him with the yellow vest, here's it unbuttoned, here's him battle damaged, here's him Gear 2, and it's basically just like a Kaioken type situation where they put a like shiny coat over him of like red gloss or something. Could have different accessories, could have new faces, could have swappable arms. He better have swappable arms. But my point is that if they get this right, they can milk this in a similar vein to how they do the Dragon Ball line. And we didn't go great out of the gate, but I do think that we can fix this, especially since it is One Piece, so it's not like the IP is not strong or not worth giving another chance. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, I'd say that's just about it in terms of like stuff to look forward to, or at least stuff that I'm looking forward to in relation to the franchise. Keen to see where I am in another year for One Piece, because I'll pretty much be up to date at that point, because I'm chapter 700 now, and another 356 days I'll be up to chapter 1056, so that'll be interesting. There won't be much manga left after that till I catch up, so I'll be up to date pretty early on next year. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I hope you enjoyed that video, and I will see you all next time.